Africa is going into the broadband world, and it's really exciting stuff. You might not be too familiar with it just yet, but it is going to hit you, and it's going to change just about so many things in the way that we do business, the way that we operate in South Africa. And one of the big players is Internet Solutions, a subsidiary of the Dimension Data Group, often said that it's the jewel in the data crown. And the man who drives Internet Solutions and has been doing it for the last 7 years is Angus McRobert, who's with us in the studio today. Angus, it's must be quite, I'm just looking back before we look at the challenges that you're going to be facing now. Things must have changed a lot in the last 7 years since you took over at ICE.
Yeah, I think a lot's changed, I think more specifically in the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, the first 3-4 years that I was at ICE, we sold a lot of internet bandwidth, a little bit of hosting, a little bit of security that went with that. We also just come out of the dotcom sort of boom and bust. So the last 3 years have been really an exciting time because there has been some managed deregulation or liberalization in the telco space. Not nearly as fast as we'd like, but I mean, if we just look at the business units that ICE has formed in the last 3 years as Voice of ICE, Africa, Satellite, Broadband, Mobile, a telco business, now community space, now even an ICE gaming business unit. So that's 7 or 8 new business units that are generating about 25% of our turnover. So an exciting space.
Being exciting, it's also attracted new players, and over the weekend we heard that the mighty Vodacom is now moving and targeting it.
So we read it with interest. Of course, you know, any industry, it's great to have competitors. It keeps us on our toes. We just look at the incumbent monopoly in our space, how sort of complacent you can get if there's no competition. But you know, we amused with the amount of money they are spending. They're coming into a 7 or 8 billion rand market, and we hear they're spending 3.5 billion. Now they have to own 100% of that market to get a return for their shareholders, which then raises the question in all of ours is what's funding this data growth of theirs? And it has to be the exorbitant price of voice.
So it would be the cell phone side that's subsidized.
Exactly. I mean, you know, the voice market in this country is about an 85 billion rand market, Alec, and the data market that we operate in is 7 to 8 billion. We've got about 35% market share. It's a competitive market. And you know, it's great to have more competition and etc. But you know, for us, the most exciting part is we're moving now into this 85 billion rand market. We at ICE sell voice at 17 cents a minute. On volume, we can get you down to 10, 12 cents a minute. Telecom, sell it at 40 cents a minute. Mobile, 2 rand a minute. So who's got the most to lose?
Well, it's interesting that you got this horizontal expansion then from potentially the guys who've got the most to lose, but maybe it's precisely because they've got a lot to lose that they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think they have a choice but to get into this space. But the exciting part for us is that we're starting to see more and more traction around these converged networks. I don't know if you know, we won the SARS RFP last year. It was a 2-year RFP process.
What is RFP?
Request for proposal, where we won the entire data network as well as all of their voice network away from telecom. Now, for SARS to outsource all of their voice to us, so that's local, long distance, international, and cellular voice, to Internet Solutions, really states that I think ICE is now positioned as the leading next generation telco in this country.
Let's just understand that. So, someone working for the revenue services picks up the phone and phones wherever it might be, a cell phone, international, somewhere. It comes through you.
It will come through us. We're in the process of migration, so in the next 4 months, it will all come through our software.
But don't you have to use the cell phone operators and
We will.
The telecom fixed lines?
No, of course we will. I mean,
so how can you be competitive?
Well, that's again goes back to the debate that we keep hearing the mobile operators saying the cost of communications in this country is so high because of telecom. Well, it is. That's partly the reason, but that's 30% of the reason. 70% of the reason of the cost of communications in this country is because of voice. And then you can say 60% of that or 70% of that is because of the mobile operators. They've artificially inflated their retail tariffs at 2 rand and 2 rand 80 for a prepaid. And those prepaid people are people who can't afford 2 rand 80, and they've artificially inflated the interconnect rates. So now you've got to say who's spending the most money and who's got the most to lose. So for us, we've done detailed analysis on our corporate customers' voice spend. For every 3 rand they spend on data, so with us, they spend 7 rand on voice. Of that 7 rand, 70% of that is mobile. And of that 70%, Another 70% is on-campus mobile. So 50% of your voice calling is from me to you in this building because you stepped away from your desk and gone to the canteen, for example. Now that's where we come into play, because voice over IP or voice over IS over Wi-Fi can now say that you don't have to pay anything for that voice call.
And you're cutting out that part of the bill, which then makes you competitive.
Exactly. So we're now putting on-net voice traffic onto our network. And it just shows what, I mean, if you look at the cell fee was a weekend rate, it's free. On-net off-peak calling is free, and it should be close to free, not 180 or 280.
Lots of interesting things happening in this space, but what's it going to do to profits? What's it going to do to return on investment for, say, Dimension Data, your parent?
Well, we're getting into new industries, so voice. So any bit of voice that we've got into is new. We don't protect any tariff pricing structures. We're not protecting any incumbent revenue streams. Everything for us is new. We're trying to be disruptive, but at the same time, we're running mission-critical networks for the blue-chip corporates out there. So being disruptive is one thing, but we have to maintain a high sense of network uptime, redundancy, etc., etc. So for us, new markets are opening up faster than we can think. The voice market is a 15 times bigger market than the data market we're in. We moved into Africa. That's a massive market. So we're talking to a lot of the multinationals that have expanded into Africa, and we've rolled out a Pan-African network, have got points of presence in 9 different African countries, and that's the exciting things that we're looking at.
Why did Wally Builders as 2 lieutenants leave Internet Solutions to go and pitch in with Vodacom? That's Omana, Omana Kutera and Johan Pretorius, yeah.
You know, I mean, I think there's many reasons why people leave. A lot of it's financial, a lot of it's being at a certain company for a certain amount of time, and then there's also personal reasons. So, you know, you don't want to...
Do they leave a hole there?
No, not at all. You know, the beauty about ICE is we've got a really strong management team, and the team that's come up for us has been people who've been at ICE 10, 12, 13 years. You know, we're 15 years old this year. So for us, it's also nice, well, it's never nice to lose any key executives. Session planning and allowing new people to come in, it's been great for us. And for us, it's been a breath of fresh air getting new people in. You know, we saw massive growth over a period of the last 3 years. And, you know, we needed a change. We needed a different way of looking at our internal processes. How do we provide a more seamless service delivery to our end customers, etc. So for us, it's been a breath of fresh air.
You talk about change. The introduction of CCOM into South Africa is going to bring a lot of that very much cheaper bandwidth and 10 times as much as we have at the moment. CCOM is one of the partners in Venfin.
Yes.
Venfin is one of the partners in Dimension Data, one of the big shareholders. Does that give you an inside track?
No, not at all. We've entered into an agreement with CCOM, but it's purely arm's length, and we're just excited about having choice now, because we've never had choice, bear in mind. We've always been at the whim of Telkom, both on local infrastructure within South Africa as well as international. So now for the first time we've got choice of undersea fiber.
How big a change will it make to the market when that cable in fact switches on 17th of June next year?
I think we've seen the price decreasing 40-50% every year for the last 4, 5, 6 years. When I joined 7 years ago, the price was 14 times higher than the price is today. So that's the extent of reduction or decrease that Telkom has brought into the market. They've understood that their monopoly will expire, and they're going to just continually decrease prices as and when new competitors come into the market. So they'll match any new fiber prices that are out there. They don't want to lose any incumbent revenue streams. For us, what we've noticed over these last few years is that every time there's a reduction in price, our customers want more bandwidth. So they want more for the same billing, because we must never forget we are bandwidth starved in this country. And everything we do online is becoming richer, and we're sending more emails, and we're browsing more, and there's more electronic commerce, etc., etc. So you're needing more and more bandwidth to transact and communicate.
Wally Builders from Vodacom Business reckons that in 2 years' time there are only going to be 3 players in this space. Do you think there's going to be quite dramatic consolidation as you think?
No, not at all. There's a number of players in this market. There'll always be 5 or 6 big players, and then you must never forget about the reseller channel. I mean, I suppose the monopolies never believe in a partner model, but there's many other smaller players out there who we work closely with, who take us into markets we can't get into. You know, you must never forget, putting a big advertising campaign on a Saturday afternoon and then switching on 100,000 SIMs on Sunday. It's a very easy game. But rolling out an IP corporate network is very different. The sales cycle's long, the IP skills that your engineers need, the configuration around router, it's not just data anymore.
So watch out, Wally, you in for a fight.
Yeah, it's not an easy game.
Angus McRobert is the Chief Executive of Internet Solutions, and 35% of the market at risk, perhaps, perhaps not. Perhaps, as you were saying, it's Vodacom's market that will be at risk more by this bandwidth explosion that we're seeing in South Africa, and not before time. Well, that's all now from Power Lunch, which is brought to you in association with MoneyWeb. We're crossing now to CNBC Europe for Power Lunch Europe with Louisa Boyson. We'll be back here at 4 o'clock on CNBC Africa with regional updates.